Let's go ahead and get started. Everyone here kind of knows me. Have you guys heard my story? Kind of know where I've come from? Okay. I've always been waiting for the day when I'd have a group of people that I didn't need to go through all of that again. Usually I have new people in the room, so this is exciting. So we can talk about anything we want to talk about today. I'm not going to go backwards into my story too much, but I am finding it interesting lately that we're having so much, I feel like, second wave spiritual awakening going on. Does anyone else feel that? You know, I talk about my story a lot about how I came to this journey and went through this chronic pain and ended up on the other side with this gift. And now what I'm feeling is if it's kind of shaking up again, you know. We're in some fast-paced energies right now. And what I attribute that to is we're recovering a lot of interesting soul pieces. So we've had these awakenings to our gifts in a very strange energy that we arrived in that was different than who we thought we were. And now it's almost like the energy is complementing us in adding the components that we need to really expand who we've become. And that's what I'm feeling, and that's what I'm seeing. So for those of you who are new here, what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about what's happening on the earth. I always like to give my interpretation of what I'm getting from my guides, what's happening in session. Feel free. We can talk about anything you guys want to, any questions you have, any experiences that you're having about channeling, anything. Bring that up because we can just flow with that. And then I'll do a live channeling portion. So I'll channel in the guides that are best suited for this group, and we will roll with a message. Of course, I film, so it's not just for this group, it goes out to the entire planet. And we'll take questions, so you can feel free to write your questions down, and we can take whatever questions you have, we just shift them so that everyone takes meaning away, all right? So something that I've noticed lately that's been going on here on the planet in my private sessions, people coming to me, is that they're really struggling to manifest in the physical. And we've kind of been talking about this for a while now. You know, things have been dropping away, the finances have been shifting, the people have been shifting in our lives. We're really starting to see the difference now between who we are and our consciousness and those that we've magnetized around us and how they might be not vibrating the same. And the guides said this was going to happen. I talk a lot about the splitting of timelines here between the third and the fifth dimension. And this is a time on the planet when we're really seeing that change go on. And you know, there's some people you cannot have these conversations with. It's like speaking Spanish to someone who only understands English. And it's getting more extreme. And so you can really see how that's evolving. But in addition to that, I feel like the energies are really complementing us right now in moving forward. And so the guides said, if we go back into my messages, those of you who have been following for several months, that we'd be coming into this time of really fast-paced manifestation. So we were going to be purging all this stuff, going through all this transition, which we have. And then we were going to hit this time where we're going to start being really magnetic in the way that things are going to come to us. And I mean, I'm seeing that in my life. Things are showing up really magnetically, aligning with my path. But we're kind of tending to struggle with them a little bit, okay? So this new speed of vibration is something that we don't understand how to operate in very well. So what I'm seeing in my clients is they've really shifted their identity. They know what they're here to do. They've got inspired action, you know, and they're ready to take charge. But then they do it in the physical in a way that's so frustrating that they keep bumping up against all these walls because we're really used to making it work in physical, right? We have a plan. We write our plan. You know, we get on the laptop. We find somebody to help us. You know, we do all these things. And we're so about doing that we forget about being. And I feel like this energy we're in is a being kind of energy. So if you look back to some of my messages, even, last year, the guides are talking about us finding that purpose or that path, that collective assignment, I'll call it, that we came with, which I believe we all came with one. It's multiple layered, okay? We are earth beings, so we see through earth eyes, and we see through density, the dimension that we're in. So this collective record usually comes up in desire. There are things that you love to do. There are things that you just know, right? There are things that you can do that no one else can do the same way. Those are all indicators of the things that you came with in your collective record or assignment. But we were just looking so fragmented in this dense energy, which we were just talking about has been very male-driven, very male-dominant, that we've interpreted these things as, oh, I just like to do this. But this is what I have to do to make money, right? Oh, yeah, I kind of like to do this on the side, but I have to do something else in order to be here. So that's really what we're blowing through right now, okay, is that belief. And some of you who are in my Lightworker programs, the classes that I do, we're really working on these imprints. I'm doing Lightworker 7 right now, if you guys are familiar. And what the guides are addressing is identity, time, and the way we've chosen to perceive ourselves in this energy. That's really what we're obliterating in order to be who we are, okay? So it's almost like this process we're stepping through with the energy. When I look back, I kind of see it like a freight train just kind of pulling us forward, with all these new activations. So I want to address this message a couple of different ways. First, I will say that the grids, which is something I talk about a lot in my messages, the grids, all they are is crystalline energy that connects us all. It's information. Some people refer to the grids as the record, okay, the Akashic record. We know there's a record. Everybody's putting information into that record. We have access to that record, but we have a limited perception to use that information. So what's happened now is we have this faster speed of vibration. We're more magnetic. We have more access to that record, okay? But the way we get assistance from the guides and beings that are here to support us is they can access this grid, all right? So we came with free will, which they would never interrupt. And I get this question a lot. Why are they not coming to this planet and just shifting it all? They can do it, right? They know how to telepathically do things and change things. Why don't they just come and clean it all up? Because it's bigger than that. If you can imagine looking down on this grid or this web of consciousness, it connects everything. Agreements we made, decisions we made, experiences we had, it's past, it's present, it's future. So if they went in and changed something in the material, it would have a ripple effect on everything in that grid, right? It's not just about that one thing. It's all the things that took us to get to this place, right? And that's pretty big. So what they do is they go in and they activate the positive timeline information in that grid. So they get a calling from us. We're raising our consciousness. We're like, we want more. We get it. This isn't who we were. We're ready for more. So they respond and they say, okay, we're going to activate the grids. And that's positive timeline energy. All right. So when we feel those waves, or we're online and people are talking about, oh, I'm feeling the wave and all this stuff, we got activated. Our grids got activated and it was positive timeline energy. We all respond to that differently. Where we are in our present moment awareness is going to be affected by that amplification of that grid. So we could be in a karmic situation that doesn't feel so good. And these beings will activate that grid energy to give us more information. It's going to amplify the problem, at least momentarily, because we have to bring a new perception to it. All right. So there's things, sometimes when those grids are amplified, we go through really turbulent change, or some of us get really emotional, or problems come up as very vivid. And it's really helping us to get over that hump where we may have been stuck, okay, in our lives. So that's one thing. And those activations are coming really fast now. So be aware. I know all of you know, we've had a lot of them here lately. And they're good. They're positive. but we're all going to be receiving them very singularly, okay, very differently. The other side of this coin is that these imprints I talked about that we're going through in my Lightworker 7 course, they were formed in a very male-dominant energy. And there's nothing wrong with male energy, okay? Male energy is what helps us to manifest into material and concrete. And we, it gives us the confidence we need, and it helps us to see things the way we need to see them in our physical experience. The balance of the female energy is that compassion, it's that connection, right? It's the softness, it's seeing how nobody did anything to me, we're all operating together, right, in this energy, and it's understanding. And that's the piece that was missing. So here we are in a fast-paced energy where we can manifest quicker. We're focused in our physical because that's what we're used to being, right? And we know with all our heart there's something we need to do. So we're trying to force it with our masculine energy, and we're not balanced, and we're not able to use this the way that we're supposed to use it. So I think the most important thing that we can do as we are in this energy is first have compassion for ourselves and remember the balance of that female energy. And that our intuition, our spiritual gifts are far more tapped in right now than what they ever have. So trust is something that keeps coming up over and over again in my sessions. The guides are saying, why don't you trust? Right? Because this feels really wonky. It has for a long time, right? But we're leveling it up. We're leveling it up. So as we're leveling it up, we really need to trust, and we need to bring in that female component of that energy that's been missing in what we've interpreted ourselves to be. All right? So as the planets are shifting and we're going through these vibrational changes, we're going to notice some changes within us. And some of the big ones that are coming up are physical. We've been talking about this a lot as well, if you've been following my messages. Physical change, and a lot of people struggling with that in the body. Disease, right? All these other things. I'm noticing it in my clients. I've noticed it in myself. Same concept here, okay? Where we've been trying to create in the physical and push things with that list and those people and all those things, we're doing it with the body as well. Our bodies are light. They are crystal energy. And when we vibrate in a faster speed, that means we can manifest in the body the same way we manifest in our experience, right? We have to balance both sides of it. So I'll give you an analogy of what has been going on in my client sessions a lot. We're operating in two different timelines. We have many timelines. We know our identity is connected to those. We're a mother. We work at the grocery store. We bowl on Friday night, right? These are all timeline energies that are singular. But we have this dominant vibration, okay, in which we create. That dominant vibration has shifted, okay? So we're operating now in this higher dimensional space. But we still have stuff going on down here that hasn't shifted yet. So the classic one is, I'm working in a job that I hate. And I'm struggling to make money, but I know I'm a healer or I'm supposed to do something here. Well, you've already created that up here. Okay, that's what this energy has been all about. That's what you coming to the realization, pulling these soul pieces in, right? All the desires, the things that you love, that you've been exploring. Whether you've been looking at it from the negative, like, I don't have time to do all these things, and I want to, or you've been looking at the positive going, I'd love to do all these things. I need to bring them into my life, and I need to create that. It's already done. I mean, we are really instantaneous creators. We're not necessarily instantaneous manifestors just yet, because there's a time-space lag, okay? But that, I guarantee you, that's already created. That identity, that new person that you are, all of the co-conspiring that you need to do with the universe has already taken place and exists. But what happens is, The work that you're doing exists in this other timeline, and you haven't integrated it yet, all right? So we can't just sever it, because we know we got to pay the bills, right? We can't just sever that job. It's keeping our, bills paid. It's keeping food on the table. We have to bring this identity, this new identity, to that timeline. That is how we shift everything in our lives. Sometimes we change, but then we walk into these situations like work, and we harness this old identity to show up as in this old job. And so we stay there. We're magnetic, right? Anything we focus our attention on or we perceive in our reality, we grow. Okay? So the best thing to do, and we always talk about neutrality, right? Neutrality, that's a tough one. It doesn't mean everything's cool in our lives. That means that, you know what? Here we are. There's some things I don't like. There's some things I do like, right? I'm going to focus on growing what I do like while this other stuff is going on. But I think the identity is really key, because we almost have this split personality going on, and we're running our timelines in that split personality. Okay, I have to be here and make money, right? And you're focusing a lot of creative energy there. And my new identity exists here, and that's not going so well, so I'm really in resistance because I can't make this work. The bridge or the glue between those two energies is you. It's your perception, it's your identity, it's what you bring to the table in all of those situations, all right? So a lot of people are getting stuck in the resistance. A lot of people are getting stuck in what feels like a collective energy, right? I have to be here because, darn it, I have to pay my taxes, and that's not my fault, so here I am. The more you focus on that outer stuff, the less you're going to make that bridge between those two timelines and really navigate them in such a way that they come together, because they can. And I guarantee in that job that you just don't enjoy so much anymore, there's something there that you were meant to experience. You chose it for a reason. And it might have been a more dense reason than what you're choosing up here, but it served its purpose, and somehow it's going to integrate with what you're doing up here. So co-conspiring is really what's going on. And try to feel into that, some of the really important messages that have been coming through have to do with God, in that we forget that we are God in motion. We source everything. Everything is sourced through us. So we don't have to push it in the material. We have to be it. And that co-conspiring takes place because of who we are, not what we request or, what we try to manifest or we try to create. There's nothing wrong with creating in the physical, but when you're creating in the physical in resistance, it doesn't feel so good. It feels forced, it feels pushed, it usually doesn't work so well. And this is a time to flow, all right? Not push, but flow. And, tuning, fine-tuning, we've been talking about that the last couple of times too, the fine-tuning, all right? So the masculine and feminine is an interesting concept. The more you bring that compassion in to your day-to-day experience, to yourself, because what I perceive from my clients too is that we really blame ourselves a lot for where we ended up, don't we? I mean, from a collective standpoint, those of us in the spiritual movement, we're looking outwards going, man, we created a mess. Look at what I created here. And really, it's not that big of a mess. I mean, it feels that way because we're in this turbulent change. But listen, we created what we did in a different energy than what we're in today. But we keep replaying history because we're going there. And we're pointing the finger at ourselves. We're pointing the finger at other people. This is not a point finger energy. This is like, and I hate to say it this way because it sounds really selfish, but this is a point the finger at me. Who am I? What do I need? Who am I energy? Because the more you pull it in here, you're going to start to see things shift. And it's funny, Ethan and I had a discussion yesterday, and I said, wow, the beautiful sky. I've seen all these beautiful skies lately. I haven't noticed any chemtrail, no geoengineering at all. And it's been days. And I thought, is that just me or is that really happening, right? That's what happens when you start to focus on you and what you're here to bring and how you're here to serve and your own creative effort. Things around you start falling in line. And that's the way we're going to shift the planet, I think, So this is a great, I think we're in a great energy to be able to make change, to push change in the collective, but it has to be centered, right? It has to be focused on us. And then outward takes care of itself, right? Any questions, any topics anyone wants to explore? No? Okay. Another concept that's been coming in that I want to speak to has a lot to do with the way that we manifest in relationship to the collective. So the guides have been talking a lot about the grids lately, which we explored a moment ago. These grids are vibrational, and we are vibrational. So I want to bring in some information about our DNA and how our DNA is being crystallized and activated and a part of this whole process. Because it gets kind of complicated when the guides talk about it, and I want to simplify it so that we have an understanding. So what we're doing here is we're rewriting history. We're doing that 24/7. You can go back in time. I mean, we see it on the planet, right? We're seeing history come back around because we're meant to rewrite it. We're meant to change it. That goes on in our experience. So for example, we might have a history of diabetes in our family. We don't have to follow that pattern, that history of diabetes. We're here to change it. We're here to reorganize it, all right? So the vibration of the grids are helping us to connect our DNA. So that diabetes, that imprint of that diabetes, it is held within the carbon-based DNA, which is our material energy. So, this is the stuff that scientists look at or doctors look at and say, oh, you've got this thing going on that you carried forward from, this, and it's going to manifest like this. We can read that. And of course, we know all about the junk DNA, right? We have 12 strands of DNA to match 12-dimensional realities, okay? We have two sets. We have a material set, which is a carbon base, and we have a crystalline set, which is a double of that. So when we are ascending, we are actually bringing in that crystalline information. That is universal, all right? So that goes beyond anything that we've experienced from our parents' parents, right? So when we're living in that linear experience, we just haven't pulled in the crystalline energy to shift it, all right? So as you're doing your work, and we know, all of us in this room are doing tons of work ourselves. That's really the energy that you're vibrating. So the guides talk about it this way. That material strand, that carbon-based DNA strand, has one speed. And it's a slow speed because it's what we manifest here on the earth. That crystalline strand vibrates a lot faster, all right? So it's a faster speed, it's a faster energy. When we ascend and we bring those two strands together, they have to harmonize, and there's a brand new speed that's achieved. So it's not slow, it's not fast, it's somewhere in between, all right? And this is what we're doing right now. There's an adjustment that goes on when that happens. When we bring those two strands together, our body has more information, our consciousness raises. This co-conspiring that we do, it gets more amplified in the field, all right? So the way we override those physical imprints now becomes easier. It becomes easier because it's a choice that we have that we're not perceiving in the physical. We've brought more information in about. So I know people will say, well, how do I get rid of this diabetes? There's not one way, all right, that we're going to do this. We're becoming lighter and lighter and lighter in our physical bodies. Our physical bodies are changing. And some of you have gone through this change, probably noticed. You're eating differently. You perceive different foods, differently. That's all related to the way that we expand our consciousness, right? But what you'll find when those DNA strands finally harmonize is that you're going to see new choices come up for you, or that information in the field's going to show up for you in a way that you need. And those of you who are familiar with my story, that's the way I healed my chronic pain. I was chronically meditating every day, 3 times a day. I was raising my vibration. I had guides coming in. All of a sudden, I didn't have to ask for it. I didn't have to search for it. It was presented to me. It's like, oh, what is this? Wow, that's exactly what I needed to know. Or who is this? Oh, that's exactly who I needed to meet in order to heal what I was going through. Now we level it up, right? So my chronic pain existed on one timeline and, got through that. And now something else might come up because we got all this history in us. We're really working in that carbon-based DNA on those imprints, right? So I might have another illness come up. All right, I leveled it up, now what? Now, and we tend to go back to that physical, just like the job, right? I got to work this out in the physical. I got to find the answer. I got to go to doctors. I got to make the choices that I need to make. No, you got to work on your consciousness, activate those strands of DNA. Sometimes we can get sick when those things happen. How many of us have done energetic work and then gone down with an illness the next day because something had to express? Think of it that way with all these big things coming up in the body. I noticed it in my clients. We've been talking about it for a long time. I had the Arcturians here actually today, earlier, telling me, remember, we're going to be going through these physical changes in the body, and we're leveling it up. We're going through the DNA. We're reversing imprints. We're reversing history. So we don't have to live with any of this stuff anymore. We really just have to work on our consciousness. And as we do, it goes back and it takes care of what it needs to take care of. So the same way I was talking about the grids, all right, and the beings coming in, and they can't just clean something up, because if they do that, it vibrates into all these other spaces. You're doing that yourself. Think about it. If you bring these strands of DNA together and you reverse something like diabetes in your life, you're actually going back in time to reverse it in all of those different dimensional timelines that brought it to you to begin with. You have an effect on the earth, changing it on the earth. See, we don't think about this. We think, we need to have a solution for diabetes. The solution's going to present itself when all of us work within that DNA to raise our consciousness and work it out in our own experience. We're not even going to have those diseases anymore, I don't think, in a number of years. Because, we're going to see these organizations, right, these that are fighting these diseases just wiped out, because what they're doing is so material. And what we're doing and what we're receiving here is so opposite of material. We're going to not have a need for those types of organizations anymore. So I think there's a lot of really positives, even though we feel like we're struggling. But I think the key is being aware of where you're trying to push and fight in the physical, because it's going to feel harder now than it ever did before, I think. Think of you going through that strand of DNA that's vibrating really slow, and you're trying to push your way through it. That's really what trying to force things in the material world's going to feel like. We want to be on that other side where things are coming. And I had this great analogy. I was on Beyond the Ordinary earlier this month, and I told this story, and I still love it because it's such a great example. I was meditating one morning, and for no reason. I had no purpose. And sometimes we do this. We go into meditation because we want the answer. I want my guides to tell me the answer. And it's like the worst resistance we can hold, right? So I went into my meditation completely open. Just wanted to meditate. Felt great. I had a great connection. Decided to walk the dog. Walking the dog down the street. And I'm thinking, I've got so many things broken in my house. I don't have anyone to help me fix it. How the heck am I going to get all this stuff fixed? And at that moment, I felt this wave of energy, this just buzzy energy come over me. And I turned my head, and a truck was going by, and it was, I think the title on the side was Mother's Little Helper. It was a handyman with a phone number, and I was like, oh, and I got my phone out, and that's the way it works, It's like when you set yourself in that right frame of mind or that consciousness, this energy is so fast, that's instantaneous manifestation. And we can do that for our body. We can do that for our relationships. We just have to stay in that space. And we have a hard time staying in that space where we're just open and allowing whatever to come, So I know it sounds really simple, but I think it is. I really think it is. We just get in our own way, and we try to push it. So Any questions about that, experiences? No? What time? 10 minutes? All right. Well, maybe we'll just channel a little more today. Yeah, let's do that. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll do the channeling portion. Everyone's been here before, I think. No? We've got some new. Oh, great. Well, pleasure to meet you. Sorry, I usually share my story. I can share that a little bit as we're getting ready. So what I'll do in this class is I channel in. Are you familiar with channeling? Okay, great. A group of guides who are best suited for this room and beyond, because I filmed today and we put this up on YouTube. And they will bring in a general message for everyone about the planet, planetary energies. I don't know. I kind of have a gist of what I think it'll be, but I don't know for sure. And then I take questions. So we write those questions down, and Ethan will read them so we get them on the camera. All right? And you can ask anything you want. We usually turn it around to make it more universally based so people around the world can take meaning away, all right, from the questions that you ask. I am an unconscious channel. So when I'm in this state, I am outside of my body. I am an observer of the room usually. I'm listening. But I don't really have the ability, I shouldn't say I don't have the ability, I choose not to break in and interrupt the message. My private sessions are a little bit different. My consciousness is a little bit more activated in those sessions. So I work with a variety of guides. Teachers and masters will have many come in today, I'm sure, depending on the questions that are asked. I work with archangels, a council of light, which is a 12th dimensional council, Pleiadians, Arcturians, the Dolphin Matrix, a variety. All right? If you don't understand the words, just hang in there with the energy. This is a vibrational transmission as well, obviously not just about the words, so you're receiving a vibration today. We are the Council of Light, and we are pleased to begin. As a 12th dimensional council, we come together with all of you in this collective space to raise the consciousness of the planet through our own experience. We do not claim that we are anything above or beyond who you are or who you are becoming. We are here in great support as we know that we are all unique in our experience and our dimensional experience, and we come to complement that as many of you are assimilating new vibrational energies. We wish to start today with the understanding of your planetary energy and how it is adjusting to what we will call activations of the grid. Mother Earth Gaia, as a being, also holds DNA, very similar to the way that you as humans hold DNA. This DNA is vibrational and informational, and it holds a universal connection. As she is one with you and you are one with her, these energetic grid shifts are first affecting the planet before they are having an effect on you. The planetary energy as a being is a collective energy that has made many agreements, very similarly to the way that humans find in their singular reality. They have also made agreements. Mother Earth is in a co-collaborative agreement with many other planetary energies and councils as she has been expanding her frequency. Now, within Mother Gaia, there are aspects of history, especially related to your planet. Those historic timelines are held within her for good purpose. The grid in itself holds all information. So when you are creating as human beings, all of what you create is held in that universal energy and is able to be accessed by all beings to support their evolution. But within the DNA of Mother Gaia, the Earth history is especially held within her memory. And we come to speak about the way this memory or this history is coming through your experience, how time is changing here on your planet in relationship to these grid shifts, and how your singular experience is now being activated in a way that is very important. When we speak of history, as you know, there is linear history that you are very aware of, the things that have been experienced here in linear time throughout the evolution of the human consciousness. But what you may not realize is that before the human collective existed on this planet, there were also beings that left history behind. And this history in itself is very important because within it is what we'll call genetic information that assisted in your evolution. This genetic information is now being held within her vibration in a different way. The activation of the grids allows anyone who is connected to it to create pathways of information beyond what physical allows. So when that grid was activated, what is taking place on Mother Earth is a part of her awareness, but information was activated within her beyond present moment, beyond what her being is experiencing, and beyond what has been created in what we'll call this recent linear time. What this offers is a restorative type of shift, because when we go back in time before the human collective was born here on this planet, there was an organic state of being. And that organic state of being was in cooperation with all things. So the beings that existed here, although they were not human, were aligned with universal energies in such a way that they were directed to the resources that they needed, and they supplied also a balance of those resources. And we bring this example in as your breath. If you think of your breath here on this planetary Earth, you are bringing in life force and you are exuding light force. In other words, you are bringing information in with each breath, and within you it is changing. There's a chemical reaction that goes on as you bring that breath in, and as you express it or expel it, it is different, it is changed. Many of you understand the relationship of oxygen to carbon dioxide. We look at this as energetic. Everything is being transformed within you, even the breath, the air that you bring in. So what you expel must have a purpose. If it is changed within you and it is expelled to be received by others, there must be something that is of great importance in that breath that is offered. And this information is what we bring you back to. It is the way in which the earth exists before it was affected by dimensional reality opposite of what we would call a 12th dimensional energy. In its purest state, the plants, the animals, the essence of what we'll call higher dimensional beings that existed here, that came to explore and terraform and experience this earth creative effort, were in divine alignment with all universal things. And so upon her, life was born. These are the very distinct human timeline energies that were activated within Mother Gaia. The predisposal of what the human collective came to be, in other words, an organic state of being that brought humans into an organic state of being. It's a very distinct point in a timeline. The reason for this is purposeful. The crystalline energy that exists within your DNA comes from this state of origination, from Mother Gaia being in all of her energetic, organic state with the source, with the universe. So in order to heal your planet, it is not just about each human's DNA or even your collective energy. It must start within her and within her DNA. And when that change took place, when those, what we'll call very important timeline energies were brought forward, you may notice that there is more ample available information on your planet than ever before. You think of this as a heightened speed of reality, and yes, it is, because as her DNA has become crystallized, she's offered new information for the human collective to intersect with. but it's also bringing history back to your planet. So what you may realize is that there are many historic realizations or discoveries that are about to emerge here and be uncovered. Many of you have looked at this as disclosure. We believe that disclosure has been defined in a very narrow light. It has been looked at as only extra-dimensional beings, when in fact, disclosure includes your Mother Gaia planet as a being and all beings that have been a part of her. So we anticipate with this new vibrational speed and the activation of Mother Earth's DNA that you will be walking into more information about your history as it is different than what you may have imagined. Now, we must speak about the relationship to time as we bring this information forward, and then we will ground it into your singular reality. Time-space is something that you define very narrowly as well, because you interpret it in a specific density. You have looked at time as a part of the clock, for example, or the calendar, and these tools have come in to support you. You've manifested tools such as time to the clock or time to the calendar to help you put into a logical framework your perceived existence. These tools, although they have been very helpful, have come truly from ancient forms of understanding universal time, and they've been modified to assist your humanity. As the history of the planet is being revealed through Mother Earth's DNA, and a new speed of vibration has been achieved both through her harmonic as well as the grid, you will begin to see the relationship to history, memory, and time change. Many of you are familiar or understand this as the Mandela Effect on your planet. We want to explain exactly what's happening so that those of you who are undergoing this change within your singular reality have a framework to better understand it. You are operating in several different dimensions. You always have been, but you choose one that you dominantly tune into. And you can think of this as your speed coming into a level. If you were in a car and you were traveling from point A to point B, and you tracked your speed from point A to point B and made an average of it, this would be the way that you assimilate vibration. You're always vibrating at an average speed of any timeline that you enter. So if you're choosing timelines, let's say, that are opposite of your consciousness, that might feel heavier or weighted, you're affecting your overall speed of vibration. This is very important to know because we feel that conscious choice or conscious awareness is a very simple tool for human beings to use in the way that they wish to vibrate and hold their consciousness. But back to the way that memory is changing. There is a different time-space reality that those historic events took place in. And let's say, for example, it was a 12th dimensional energy. So we can go back to the origination point of Mother Earth, and she was formed in the likeness of a 12-strand DNA, and all beings that came to her matched that likeness, making it a 12th dimensional experience. As 12th dimensional experience becomes obvious or unveiled here, it holds a relationship to speed. And so what you may find is some of the information from past timelines that you are trying to interpret or remember are going to be in a different relationship to speed. This is why fragmented parts of them often fall away or are reorganized. Material information is something we want to speak to. You have a memory, and let us say that memory is of a time in your life when you were together with your family. That memory seems very concrete to you, but all it is vibrational energy intermixing to result in some type of an imprint. So the beings that were there may seem very material or physical, but yet at the same time, in the memory, they're no longer physical. They are energetic, they're vibrational. Their physical body is no longer in that time. And all of the things that you did in that memory no longer truly exist in physical. Perhaps you were tossing a ball back and forth. That ball in itself, although it's in your memory as physical, is just energy. It's no longer physical. So when the speed changes and you go back to revisit this memory, what you might find is that the ball is a different color, or the being that was in that memory looks a little bit different, or maybe someone else now comes into the memory that you don't remember being there before. The reason for that is you're taking that vibrational information and you're interpreting it through a new speed. So in essence, the memory has to be filtered back through your consciousness and reorganized as to all its material components. This is very important to understand because it applies to all areas of your singular and collective reality as these transitions are being made within Mother Gaia. As she is affected in her DNA, you being grounded and connected to her are also affected in your DNA. So every time that she's illuminated in new history, you are also illuminated in new history. You often perceive this as inspiration, desire, a need, or a lack. Because you're always operating in what we'll call this field of information, history. There's always a basis for everything that you create. Spontaneous creation is only the distance between your desire and what has happened before. Because you're using that information in the field and you're reorganizing it and changing it. So you may have done something here in the past. And whatever you've done in the past is maybe not to your liking anymore. So a desire has sprung up within you to change the way you have done it. Where this desire comes from is the memory of what you have done before and the time-space reality to who you have become. You are now changing that information in the field with new vibrational information and the capacity to create differently. So dimension is very important, is the point we are getting to. What you're seeing take place in your outer world is exactly the same as what's going on in your inner, as well as within the core of Mother Gaia, within her own DNA. The uncovering of history or the revisiting of history is always the catalyst for how it is transmuted, how it is recreated, and how it is changed. There's always a platform that you're working from, and that platform is the record, it is the grid. But you see, from the dimension that you are operating in, you've looked at this a little differently than what we do. Because we recognize that the information within that grid is not all negatively charged. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to use the ego as a structure to perceive what you have done as negative or wrong. And this is why it is so important for you to begin to use the tool of conscious awareness to create in alignment with your identity. That identity has changed. It's changed through conscious awareness and through the available information within the grids coming through Mother Gaia. The reason that you feel different or you know different or you desire different is that you're really plugging back into that organic state where those beings were allowing their breath to come in and out to support all things. This is who you're becoming. This is why you desire to be of service. You're just filtering that through a more physical being, a more physical consciousness. You see, the activation of this history is taking you back to the desire of connection, the desire of purpose, the desire of healing through your own experience. So as we talk about the DNA within you, it is not something difficult that you have to strive for or work towards to bring that crystalline energy to the surface. You really need to use the tools at your disposal to walk through this time in a way that transcends exactly what is within your record and the record of all others. Those tools, my friends, our conscious awareness, of heart-centered activation, and of the organic state of being. Knowing that everything that you are doing affects everything else. Everything that you are being affects everything else, and everything that you are choosing affects everything else. And if you look at the way that you've chosen here, you have chosen in a density that kept you separate of that realization. So ascension truly is bringing you back into your organic state, existing in a state of oneness with all things. And if you remember that energy, it will help you to assimilate manifestation. Manifestation can come in alignment with that, what we'll call amplification, that we've seen within Mother Gaia. Those very positive organic timelines, they exist within you. Not only here, but in other dimensional locations. And you're pulling that information together more than ever. So we ask you to be compassionate with yourself and others as you go through this transition, and to realize that as all things become reconnected, it is in benefit that you will serve not only yourself, but also the healing of the planet and all others as they are also undergoing their transition. And we're pleased to answer questions.
How do common vision problems such as astigmatism and nearsightedness reflect our soul's experience or our perception of reality, and how can these be healed?
The Pleiadian, we're getting the Pleiadians and the Arcturians coming in to answer this question. And we are the Pleiadians. We wish to speak to the soul's evolution as well as choices that you make within your physical experience. But we first must explain that there are many aspects of your reality that have less to do with things you have chosen or karma, and more to do with the way that your collective creation has allowed situations to evolve here on your planet. So you're speaking of something that is a specific disease or a specific ailment. Now that specific ailment, as you go into your soul experience, is given meaning through you. So oftentimes the way this works is that you come with something to serve. You come with a vibrational record. And that record is, of course, to in some way shift your own experience through the experience of others. And you've decided vibrationally along the way that you would have what we'll call human experiences as the basis for that understanding. So your perception took you into a vibrational experience and brought together something that you needed in order to understand better your collective record. Now, the outer world, what we've developed here in the outer world as a collective are what we'll call a set of criteria. So we as human beings have created various types of physical ailments through our experience. We've defined them. And we want to step outside of this specific situation for a moment, although we will address it. And let's make it more universal and talk about something such as cancer. Cancer on your planet has become a concrete manifestation because it was defined through your collective experience. It didn't have a name. It didn't have a process. It didn't have an explanation. You gave it all of those things. And in its what we'll call organic state, since we're speaking in this message today about organic state of being, in its organic state, it may be a cellular activity that is actually complementary of the structure. But it's the perception of it has taken it outside of that complementary activity. So now you have something that exists, a real dimensional manifestation of a disease with a name, a process, and even perhaps a diagnosis. And you come along as a soul with a vibrational experience that you desire to have. Your perception will take in that disease and it may intermix with what we'll call your vibrational desire. And that is to have some type of experience in the body for the experience of transmuting it for yourself and for others. But remember the explanation of history. History comes into this as well. We've been replaying through time many of the things we've defined here. And if we could get human beings to think about these types of material manifestations as truly what they are, which is energy, it would be very easy to overcome them. Because we want to bring the analogy back in about the way you reorganize memory. If you think about all of that energy coming together and forming something in the brain that you interpret as a past linear message, but it's not concrete at all. It's really just energetic, and you're the glue that holds it together. When you think of it this way, you can reorganize any information in the field, and this is truly what we want to get at. So did your soul choose it? Was it karma? Was it collective? It's all. All of those components come together in order for you to have something like this manifested in the physical body. Now, there's different levels of healing, and those levels come in based on your consciousness. And this is where the Arcturians come in. They say that when we're operating in specific dimensions, we're going to only have a certain set of tools or criteria to work with. So in other words, if we have this disease and we're working in the third dimension, we're going to have to heal it in physical ways, because that's the energy that we're matching. So we're probably going to have some type of physical medication come in, or some type of a physical treatment come in that is here to assist us. The problem with this is, although some of you are still tuned into the third dimension, you're vibrating far higher. So you have the analogy of this disease as something concrete that you must heal in this way, but your vibration doesn't match it. So you try to pull in various healing tools in that third dimension, and they do not work. And they do not work because they do not match your consciousness. The soul energy is always assimilating purpose from any experience it chooses. And this is where we want to speak to judgment for a moment, because in the judgment of your experience, you are adding to the density of what you are perceiving. So if you are judging this experience as negative, and we know that it is uncomfortable, if you're judging it as something you deserved as karmic, if you're judging it as something that you cannot override, you're creating density. Density clouds the field. So it makes it more difficult for you to receive what you need in the vibration that you're already offering. When the soul chooses this type of energy, sometimes it can be related to information being held in resistance. So we want to speak to the sight. Oftentimes, the body knows that the consciousness does not wish to see something in its pure state of reality. And perhaps it's the self, or perhaps it's the other. We can always look at communication to the body to give us the nonverbal cues of what we need to understand about our own evolution to heal the physical things we've manifested. So we encourage beings that are having specific relationships to disease in various areas to really go in and communicate with the body, or explore the reason why there could be a match of information in what they've manifested versus what they are experiencing. So a loss of sight or an aggravated sight is something internal. There is something that I do not wish to see, either in myself or in others. Working on that side of it is always, in this new energy that you are working within, going to be far more offering results than spending your time working within that dominant material energy. When physical beings manifest a disease, it is not a concrete timeline that is held in its entirety. In other words, you often look down your experience as something that is, and we use the example of the carbon-based DNA, inherited, and such that it is not meant for you to overcome. But we go back to the original message from the council. The inheriting of the disease is just the tapping into the universal information that must be rearranged. So our advice to you is to stay very neutral with what you have contracted, understanding that it's information in the field that can be rearranged, and operating in your higher dimensional consciousness to allow the healing that is most appropriate for what you have manifested to come in. Also paying very close attention to the meaning behind the manifestation and how it is serving you from a soul experience.
Based on our current progress and movement, do you have a relative time here in the physical in which we will be able to see a change from the chaos of the change to a more harmonious time of growth?
This is the council stepping in. And what we would say to this question is that linear time is a very difficult thing to project. We can do it in the moment. So for example, we're able to, in the same way that we have mentioned the car analogy, you could drive from point A to point B and be at different speeds and find an average of that speed. We can do the same. So we can look at your Earth and we can see exactly what speed of dominance you are all vibrating in to calculate exactly how many linear years it would take for you to make change here. The problem with this analogy is that you are vibrational beings who are always changing in the moment. So that prediction, although it might be a very good one to use in this moment, would not be valid in the next. What we would rather answer this question as is your ability to manifest material and how you are interconnected with all things. And we can speak to what we see happening in the material in response to this. On your planet, in the same way we've talked about memory, you are reorganizing information in memory timeline. So, to give you an example of this, we will take your healthcare system, for example. Your healthcare system is one consciousness. It is one timeline. You are all intersecting with it to your liking and to your perception. Some are not. Some are choosing not to. Others are very intersected in it. In that energy, you see it in the moment for what it is. And it may have a structure. There may be certain rules that you have to follow. And in the same way Cancer evolved on your planet, those rules and those definitions evolved as well. As you are interacting with that consciousness and the new historic information is coming up, the potential to change it is what's truly the part we want you to focus in on. Because we see this already happening. In the healthcare industry, for example, we believe the next 3 years will be extremely critical on your planet for reorganizing that consciousness. The reason for this is that as human beings vibrate differently in their physical structure, they're not going to match that consciousness any longer. It's the same analogy as what was brought forward in the previous message. You operate in a physical dimension, but you vibrate differently in a higher speed. That consciousness is not going to affect you in the same way it has before. So because of that, dramatic change will have to take place. And that energy is made up of many things. So in the same way you reorganized the memory, maybe someone else appeared in the memory or the color of the ball turned different. This is how you are restructuring your collective consciousness. The parts of that timeline are going to shift and change in a way that it might look similar, but it's reorganizing in the field. Now, you tend to see failure as human beings, and we want to speak to this because you're very attuned to that male energy and perceiving in a way that is judgmental or holds itself to material. So perhaps it's finance, perhaps it's emotion. Regardless of what you're judging this experience as, you can understand the way that your judgment holds specific vibrational connections to it as well. And this is why we say neutrality is so important. So those of you who are connecting that timeline of the medical industry and in a very, what we'll call negative thought process around it, are actually exasperating the problem or the manifestation of it, you see. This is why many of the structures on your planet are failing, because there's this push-pull. There's new information coming into the field to reorganize, so it's getting very uncomfortable. Things aren't working. And we're holding a negative type of perception around it, which is amplifying what is not working, but not allowing what is meant to come in to actually reorganize it. We see this in a variety of different areas on your planet. So it's difficult for us to look at the overall picture and say that the entire planet would be completely healed in a specific time. But we can take various aspects, and especially your physical body being one that is of the most importance in the next several years, linear years, because your vibrational record shows that. You knew that as you were becoming more crystal and light, that the need for experience of the body in a collective energy was going to change. And that activation of the body and support of your crystalline energy was going to be the tool that was going to need to evolve. And that is why you're already seeing some of this trickle into what your medical establishments already hold. Now, the financial structure and the governmental structure is a bit different. They are separate consciousness and timeline as well. However, one very important component of this we want to speak to is the reptilian consciousness. We've talked a lot today about the vibration of Mother Earth and going back to the timelines of her organic state, as well as the vibration of the grids. This is causing a weakening of this reptilian consciousness. It is the same concept again that we wish to repeat. If you're vibrating in a specific energy and there is something here you must intersect with, they will not match. And this reptilian consciousness that has been present on your planet relies very much on your singularity in order to access your creative energy. The reason for that is, if you're not connected in a grid or a web of consciousness, well, we'll take this and say you always have been. If you're not aware that you are, you become very weakened in your ability to create. In other words, and create, we'll say, in the highest alignment or the highest good for all things. And this is what this reptilian consciousness relies on, is that you stay in your singularity to the degree that you're not creating an alignment for the betterment of humanity and the planet. But this is changing. And the reason that it's changing is multiple layered. It is your divine will in the rays of your consciousness as singular beings to connect to that one. It is the alignment of Mother Earth and her DNA. It is the activation of your own, as well as the amplification of the record. So what we see happening in the next, we believe in linear time, the next 5 to 7 years, is that the hierarchies on your planet are going to begin to crumble. And they have to do this because hierarchy energy is very different to organic state of being. And this is why you see the chaos that you are seeing. When hierarchies begin to crumble, and it is something that the human collective is used to operating in, it becomes very chaotic. In other words, when we can't trust the people at the top as we've trusted them before, who are we to trust? Well, the trust is not the issue. It is the energy of those hierarchies that has to reorganize in the field in order for everything to come back to the organic state. So we believe the next 5 to 7 years on this planet will be very pivotal in the change that you will see. You speak to chaos. From our vantage point, chaos is just a very fast-paced speed of manifestation. But of course, you interpret it as something that is very difficult, and it is all within your perception to interpret. If you see something that is not to your liking on the planet, it is not necessary that you tune into that in a way that it creates your reality. There are pockets of consciousness, and we want to bring this message in because we feel it's very important. As you have been operating in what we will call a shadow earth, a new vibrational being that is emerging in her organic state, there are 2 separate forms of collective consciousness that are also emerging. And they both vibrate in different speeds of reality. This is why many of you are visioning or seeing the chaos from a higher dimensional state, but you're not necessarily affected by it or experiencing it in your physical. Because you're operating in a different timeline that chaos exists on. But the problem is you perceive it and you bring it into your reality in a way that you feel you must. And that's why we always go back to neutrality. Because when you begin to operate in neutrality, what you will see is that the hierarchies that are dissolving are actually making room for the reorganization of new energy. And there are things on your planet that are coming back into their organic state. And those are the things that we ask you to tune into and embellish. because as you do, you will see that this timeline will go faster for you. And as a matter of fact, we would say that it will be less of a concern. Those that operate in that third dimensional reality that cannot perceive this hierarchy crumbling and the reason why it must are the ones that will suffer. And their magnetics will choose suffering in response to what is taking place. Human beings have a choice and they have free will. They have the ability to choose the reality that they wish to see and create from. And this is the most important answer we have to this question.
Is there a DNA strand associated with the 13th dimension, and what can be said about this dimension?
This is the council, and yes, we are pleased to bring this information in, and there is a 13th dimension that is being formed, and we use those terms in a way to help humans understand. Dimensional reality is essentially, of course, information vibrating at a specific speed of light. And as ascension is taking place within this universe, new dimensional realities are being created. Now, created and stabilized are two different things. It is as if you are in the process of creation yourself, and perhaps there is something that you wish to output. And as you are outputting it, it's a slow process. Things are coming together very slowly, and then it finally has its stability. It's created, it's in material, and it exists. It's very similar to the 13th dimension. As the grids have been activated and this universal frequency has called for more, what we'll call available information to create from, a new dimensional reality has been born. There are many beings that operate in that dimension and that are pulling together various experiences to serve within that dimension. Now, the strands of DNA are an interesting discussion because you were born in the likeness of a 12-strand DNA, but there is also available space and room for your evolution as a species. The 13th strand is something that in this moment is crystallizing within you. So it is not fully crystallized. It is not material, and it will not be material. So the way we speak of the carbon-based energy, especially earth-related, the 13th dimensional strand in a carbon-based energy would not appear until humans are able to assimilate the crystalline double. The reason for this is it's a state of information that is different than what you were created in the likeness of. What we find is that when these new dimensional realities are formed, every being in the universe will assimilate new strands of DNA or in some way be vibrationally changed by it. They must, because it offers what we'll call a new form of interaction with the universe. So yes, a 13th dimension does exist. It is in its organic formation, and there are many beings that are stepping into that 13th dimensional reality and beginning to plug it into the matrix of the crystalline grid. Your structure is being affected by that. It's a crystalline energy that you are assimilating in a strand of DNA that is forming within you. It will, what they want to say is on the other side of much of this reorganization of the hierarchies, that 13th dimensional strand will easily be able to vibrate. It cannot vibrate in a hierarchical system. So that is why we say that the material double of it is not available to you yet, because as long as there's hierarchy here on the planet in some form, that 13th dimensional material strand cannot exist.
What is Christ consciousness and the cosmic Christ?
This is Mary Magdalene stepping in. When we speak of Christ consciousness, we speak to the energy that also exists within the DNA, and we wish, as the Magdalene Collective, to bring in the information of how Christ consciousness is equal to this discussion that has been taking place about your crystalline DNA. What the Christ knew when the Christ walked the earth, and you bring in the analogy of cosmic, because many of you think of the Christ as a human being, and although the being of the Christ can be interpreted as human, there was a different type of energy that was present on the planet during this time. That higher dimensional energy allowed for what you would call cosmic, or a more interdimensional type of connection. So we consider the Christ consciousness as not just a singular being, but an interdimensional connection to the earth. Now, your Christed DNA is the crystalline energy vibrating in its harmonic. What that means is that it's fully available and activated with the carbon double and able to be put into logical perspective and used in your experience. So when you think of the Christ, and we'll first speak to the being, the Christ, and then we'll speak to the consciousness. The story of the Christ that you are familiar with, there was much material suffering. But within that material suffering, there was a transcendence, there was a rebirth. And that was through the activation of the crystalline DNA. Now, the consciousness of the Christ exists as many. Many of those who were present on the time of the earth during the actual evolution of the Christ, and this is not just one timeline, it is many in different dimensions, make up the Christ consciousness. You are a part of that consciousness as well. All of you are. You were born within the likeness of that Christ consciousness, and you hold it within your DNA. So the cosmic Christ is the relationship to your universal energy through the Christed DNA. It takes it beyond the earth. And the Christ consciousness, or the activation of that energy within you, is more of an earthbound focus. It's using the interdimensional energies to transcend your physical experience. And you can consider this instantaneous healing. You can consider this rebirth or baptism. You can also consider this the way in which we can transcend the field of material, walking the water, for example. All of these things are examples of what your Christed DNA or your activation of your 12-strand DNA allows. So when you speak of the cosmic Christ, that Christ consciousness itself is an interdimensional consciousness. It is not just made of human experience or human soul energy. It is made up of many that were present during these dimensional timeline experiences and still are. When you assimilate Christ consciousness or you connect to it, you are connecting to source energy, because that is what the Christ is. It is source energy. So when you are Christ-like, or you are vibrating in your Christed DNA, you are fully connected to source. And in that moment, you're vibrating as source. And in that moment, all things are possible.
Who are the Elohim, and what is their role in humanity?
And we are pleased. We are the Elohim, and we are made up of many who are souls who have walked the earth, ascended master souls who have walked the earth. The Yeshua, the Christ energy, the Mary Magdalene energy, the Michael energy, and many of the disciple energies also vibrate into the Elohim. Now, these stories go across time. They span across time. And many of your human religions have interpreted the Elohim differently, as different beings, as different souls, as different energies. We come to span all of them. We are not just one, we are many. Our purpose and our intention is to help souls on the planet to revisit through their karmic experience the understanding of the universal one. The universal one being the origination point of your human experience and beyond. What we have understood, and we come to help others understand, is that their soul energy is a very valuable focus. That within that soul experience, before you arrived here in human form, there was a desire. And that desire is the key to the way that you heal. But many believe that their desire is separate of healing, that what they desire is the opposite of what they must heal in order to receive the fulfillment of their desires. We come to connect the meaning of the two together, to help you realize that your desires and your healing are one and the same within your soul energy. And we come to connect as well with the Christ consciousness as a part of our assignment, to help those understand that that Christed energy is complementary of what your soul experience came to be. We are ascending as well. We are many who have walked through an earth experience that are also vibrating in a singular intention, and that singular intention is always changing. So we find ourselves in different dimensions, assisting other beings outside of just human, and also working within our own timeline to create and expand our teachings for the purpose of humanity and the soul experience and beyond.
How does the vibrational speed of a salad made with the energy of anger compare with the vibrational speed of meat cooked with an intention of love?
This is the Pleiadians coming in. And we want to speak to vibration, especially in relationship to the way that you nourish yourself. And we understand that this is a very large dilemma on your planet. If you are able to transcend anything, why is it that you must pay close attention to the way that you eat? And we do agree with the statement as such. There are beings on the planet who may choose a more dense form of consciousness to bring in as nourishment, but may transcend it by their ability to tune in to a higher dimensional consciousness and create through that experience something other. We were speaking of the Christ consciousness a moment ago, and this is purely the example of the Christ, turning the water into wine. That possibility is open to all beings. The problem that we see, though, is that the dimension that you've been held in and the singularity that you have been focused in is causing much of the problem to truly be able to activate this type of change. When you are choosing the dense consciousness, such as an animal meat, for example, that consciousness is bringing in so much information that you have to sort through. It's the same as the memory. The memory that you have of the red ball and the people in that experience. They all have a vibrational essence that they bring to that memory. They bring their own consciousness, their own experiences, and you assimilate your consciousness from it. So in your linear time, you have this memory of throwing this red ball with this other person, and it holds more than what you think it does. And this type of choice is the same. The animal consciousness that you bring in is containing very much information. And because you've been more densely focused, that information matches your density. So if you're coming to the situation full of what we'll call dense energies that make up your identity, and you're choosing a more dense form of consciousness, you're going to match what's within that dense consciousness that doesn't serve you, such as anger, such as fear. But if you're vibrating in your Christed consciousness, for example, and you're not bringing so much density with you to this decision, you can match the higher vibrational essence of that animal through your perception. But the problem is, your thought process often takes you outside. And we're not talking about the thought process about eating that animal consciousness. We're talking about the thought process of your entire being, your entire existence. And let's go back to some of the questions that have been asked today. The way you perceive your collective, being in a state of chaos. The way you are existing perhaps in a third dimensional timeline that doesn't equal who you have come to be. There are many dense thoughts or frequencies, emotions around these types of shifts. And you have a tendency now, when you're bringing in that nourishment, to match the equal energies of fear, negativity, chaos within them. So we believe that it is possible to transcend your nourishment and the information within that nourishment. But what we would say is you really need to stay more focused in the non-physical and bring your identity to it in a way that transcends it from the water to the wine. Within you also, we want to say there's a process that is taking place of crystalline source energy. We've talked very much today about the DNA and the speed of vibration of these various strands. So going back to the analogy of the carbon and the crystalline DNA coming together and harmonizing and finding a new strand, this is making you communicate differently with your environment. So it's the same thought as trying to heal a cancer in a third dimensional way when you vibrate in a different timeline. If you choose this density and you're vibrating in a different timeline, it is not going to work for you. It's going to create experience that will be different than what you wish for it to be. And this is why the Arcturians come in for a minute. They say that this is why so many human beings are struggling in their physical body. It isn't just about the history we're bringing up. It's that we're matching the history in our outer decisions. And we don't have the framework to be able to put them in the right vibrational energy. So we're operating in a lighter frequency, but we're bringing our lighter frequency and we're trying to fit it within a dimension with activity that doesn't work. So that animal product will cause more situations, manifestations in the body or in your consciousness, your connections, than what it may ever have before. So we believe, as we see your consciousness shifting here on the planet, that the way in which you nourish yourself and the choices that you make will change. They must, because they're going to complement that light source crystalline energy within, and they're going to match who you have become.
Is reality tuning us in on one frequency out of many, kind of like having infinite amounts of movies playing at once and us tuning in on one? And does our higher self and Oversoul get to watch many at the same time?
This is the council, and we're pleased to explain this. There are varying levels of density that you exist in, void of your dimension. And let us explain the difference between density and dimension. Density is the material that you create or have created through time. It is made up of your creative process, thought and emotion, and it carries imprinted information. So we'll make it real simple. If you have an experience perhaps of a car accident, and in that car accident there was a physical experience of breaking a limb. In that physical experience, you may have created very much density. And that density could have been exasperated by the way you responded to the situation. The broken leg became a source of suffering, and the car accident became a source of anger, and perhaps you were blaming the person in the other car for actually creating this experience in your life. What you've done is you've created a lot of dense material around you in this experience that is imprinted. Now, there is nothing wrong with that. Human beings have created density through time. The problem is that when you are allowed to access new dimensional energies, the density or the choice to operate in the density keeps you outside of that access. So we would say there are varying levels of speed that we can focus on as singular, planetary, and universal. And they're made up of density, dense information, as well as the dimension that you are holding. Dimension and holding is another concept we want to bring in. You hold dimension in the same way you go from A to B in that speed in a car. You may have the ability to vibrate in a 7-strand DNA. And that 7-strand DNA is something that you have achieved in this life. But the density that you hold does not allow you to stay in that 7th dimension. It might keep you anchored in 3rd or 4th in your creative efforts. But it is a choice. It is a choice to either tune into density or tune into light. So if you're tuning into light, you're actually activating and matching the higher dimensions. Now, you're experiencing several different realities at once. And many beings find this difficult to understand because they only see one. They see one collective reality that everyone else sees. But two beings cannot experience the same collective reality in the same way. And you may say, well, I saw this on the news the other day and my friend saw it too, so it must be. But vibrationally, you have both accepted that information completely opposite of the other. So the collective reality is really your ability to tune in through your own dimensional reality clouded by density. This is why some see the collective reality as chaos and some see it as evolving. Because the density that they hold is perceiving into a timeline. Now, there are many timelines. There are ones you create in your singular, and there are ones that are collective. The example we brought in about the medical institutions, this is one consciousness, one timeline. But within that, there are many. Everyone is experiencing that timeline differently. through their own experience. The Oversoul and the higher self is able to sort through information differently. The higher self is an organism that oversees your soul energies. So you have many soul energies that are not just in this body. You are operating in other soul bodies, fragmented energies here on the earth, as well as in other dimensions. Your higher self is understanding of where your soul energy has fragmented and why and how it complements itself. The Oversoul is a universal being. That Oversoul energy sees into a one unified field, and it sees all of the information being input into that one unified field. Now, all of those organisms are active within you. Your perception, your density, your soul, your Oversoul, and your higher self. And yes, they all tune into different timelines. But as they do, it is your choice to receive what you need through them. And this is why we brought density into the equation. The more that you choose density, the less you integrate with your higher self. Because that higher self exists in a plane of reality where density is not. In order to be a higher self energy, you cannot have density to see all of the soul activity. So the more you tune into that car accident and you bring it back into your reality time and time and time again, that higher self is not going to be allowed to do its work in relationship to your physical manifestations or experience. And there is much value there. Because your higher self can bring in information that you've already created in other realities, in other timelines. The Oversoul works exactly the same. The Oversoul is a universal organism that all beings are connected to. We believe it is one, it is not many. The higher self is many, the soul is many, the Oversoul is one. And you can consider the Oversoul as the seer of the dimensional record, the grids, the energetic grids. This energy is also available to you. But of course, if you're tuning into density, it cannot integrate into your experience. And the way it often integrates is through your senses. That is the first plug-in of the Oversoul. The integration of your extrasensory abilities allows your Oversoul to bring information to you from what we'll call universal timeline energy and those that are meant to intersect with your earth record. So the timelines are many, but you perceive them as one. And the reason that you perceive them as one is purposeful, because you decided to have a physical experience in this focus. So this focus is bringing all of that information together as a one experience. And although you meant to come and have that, what you ultimately knew before you arrived here was that it would always be made up of many, not just one. And it was your choice, your free will, to experience this reality through as much information as you possibly could, as long as you were transcending what we'll call the karmic experiences or the difficult life journey, and not bringing it back to the table and recreating it through density.
Can you share tips to help someone trying to bridge the road from that job we don't want to do anymore, to pay the bills, to the new version of ourselves and our soul contract?
This is the Pleiadian stepping in, and yes, we are happy to do that. First, we will say you are in divine order with exactly where you are meant to be in this transition. And as human beings, you will always be transitioning. So there is a time-space reality that you will walk through to integrate information. And if you are at peace with that integration, the smoother and the faster it will go within your own singular experience. So to some degree, this difference in timeline energy between the old job and the new identity is something that was meant to be experienced in this time and is something that was also meant to be transmuted in this time. So the more you can come to peace with that, the better. But we want to say that the density, again, according to the previous question and the information that was brought in, is often the precursor for why that connection is not made. Human beings have been operating in too much density, and they create it over and over again so that it does not allow the integration of timeline energy. So you speak about this job, and perhaps it is a job that you are not liking, and perhaps, although you do not like it, it is paying the bills. Everything in your reality that is needing to shift will shift through your conscious awareness of it. You, as you have defined Cancer, are defining your own experience. So become the seer of this timeline first, not the one that's actively involved in it, not the one that is suffering through it, and be very cognizant of density you're creating around it. And choose to understand that when we are making, when we are transitioning, when we're walking through change, there are things that are meant to support our activity as we transcend. So perhaps this job that you are not liking so much, that is paying the bills, is here to support something that you're creating in a different timeline. And when the time is right, that monetary essence or currency that you are creating in that timeline will actually be realized elsewhere. So the more you are able to understand that everything in your life has a purpose, the more you can connect that purpose to where you are going and what this new identity is. We also like to bring in energy and vibrational currency because we feel it's very important. We understand that many of you are struggling, especially with finance right now. It is either the way finance has been defined as limiting on your planet, or finance as it is not coming in the way that it used to because you've vibrationally changed. When you consider that your energy is currency, the more you are in a state of resistance or density around what is, the more you are creating that lack. You must bring the definition to that currency, and it must be neutral. Because not only are you redefining your identity, the way that that currency is going to come in response to that new identity has to be different. It's not just going to be something to pay the bills or to put food on the table. It may become something to expand your work in the world, or to be of service, or to fulfill yourself in some way. So the ideas that you have that are limiting you to this timeline are the things to focus on and catch yourself in. The more that you catch yourself in the thought process around these old, what we'll call creations that must be shifted, and redirect yourself to the support that you have, the transition that you're walking, the realizations you've come to and where you are going, the better off you will be. Because it's all about energy. And when you match that energy, what happens is the train leaves the station, and we'll give this analogy, and this is Gabriel stepping in to remind me of this analogy because we've had it this week. When the train is going at a very fast speed, it will oftentimes slow down to reach the station. And as it reaches the station, people get off and new people get on. And then it must pick up speed again in order to get to the next station. And consider this the process that you're going through. You are that train on that track, and you're rolling into the station to allow some of what you've created in that energy to get off and new energy to get on. That slowing of that speed is really your intention. And the more you come into neutrality and peace with what is. Because if you don't, you might pass that station if you choose to keep going in the creation of the density and the perception of lack. That train might miss that station and the new energy doesn't get on. So be very slow and deliberate in this energy. Make very conscious choices and be very consciously aware of your thought process. Because the new will come, it already must. If you are recognizing something is out of alignment in your life, it is because you've already created that which is the opposite of it. And now you must match it. But if you're on a different dimensional speed than what it exists, the matching of the information will not come. So neutrality, peace, calm, and conscious awareness of your thought process and the reframing of what is truly going on in your life.
What is the role of ego in the ascension process and fifth dimensional healing?
Okay, I'm getting the Christ consciousness for this question. So we're a collective of ascended masters stepping in, and I actually get Michael stepping forward. We wish to discuss the ego. As ascended masters who have walked an earth experience, we have come to understand and integrate the ego as a very valuable piece of what you are here offering on the planet, as well as perceiving. The ego in its original state has been taken away from you. And it's been taken away through what we've determined as a reptilian consciousness and the activities of that reptilian consciousness. It has focused you in the singular, and it has caused you to look outside in judgment. The ego is not a tool more than it is an organism, an energetic organism. And it's meant for you to strengthen your identity through the perception of the outer world in response to the complementary energy of the self, not the discord. The discord is another piece. But the ego is meant to see itself through all things. In other words, how is the planet so beautiful that I am beautiful? How is my experience so lovely that I am so lovely? How are these beings that are coming to me of me and offering me something that is valuable for me to use in my experience, to transcend something in my life or to expand in some way? But what's happened is the ego has been turned on you in a way that you judge your identity as it is forming through others. And that judgment is something that really isn't ego. It is something that's taught. It's a male-dominant energy that you have been taught. And as that ego has been activated in judgment, what it's done is it's kept you in singularity. It's kept you from that interconnection, when really it was meant to be all that is, interconnected to all things, and seeing your uniqueness in that collective energy. Because ego as an organism holds a very important aspect of your record. And we want you to understand that your record here is not the same as any other being. In the same way that you look different, you feel different, you speak different, you desire different things, your record could never be replicated or duplicated by anyone. Regardless of history that's coming up that we say is repeated, your collective record is the unique essence of what you bring to the earth. And the egoic structure came to support that. And that's why oftentimes it's misunderstood. When someone is very powerful in their identity and their uniqueness, they are looked at as being perhaps abrupt or in some way difficult. But at the same time, that strong acceptance of their uniqueness is the tool that it was meant to be, to connect that record to the outer world, to understand it had a valuable piece to serve here in this collective energy. So when you're working with the ego in spirituality, we say not to let go of the ego and believe that it's something that you must cut off or not exist with, but to use it to be able to see the value of your unique piece in this collective space. The more that you turn the ego in on the self to identify the beautiful, positive, and loving aspects of what you bring to this planet, the more it will serve you. And it will less be in a state of judgment and more be in a state of connectedness, to see the collaborative agreements that you made and how you are meant to co-conspire with all things through your unique self. The best way to do this is to use a mirror analogy. When you are in a state of judging the self based on someone else, and let us say this is knowledge. There's someone outside of me that knows more than I do. Imagine that person being a mirror to who you are. Because there is no being that comes into your experience that is not the mirror to what you are becoming. So their knowledge and that wisdom that they hold isn't meant to show you you are less than. It is meant to show you you are equal. It is meant to show you that you are wise as well. And perhaps you're not wise in the same areas that this individual is wise in. And that's the unique component that your ego really wants to explore. The degree to this person is wise in one area is the degree to which I am wise in my own area. And if you apply this mirror concept, it will help you to strengthen the ego to complement your creative process.
This question comes from one of your viewers in India. It's rather long, so bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
This is an excerpt from the book titled Synthesis of Yoga, authored by Sri Aurobindo during the time frame 1914 to 1921. He did quite a bit of work for the attunement, for the betterment of the human future evolution and to bring down heaven to earth. After reading this, the person who submitted this question would like to know what is the current status and proceeding of this. So it's fairly long, so just give me a moment here. The perfect supramental action will not follow any single principle or limited rule. It's not likely to satisfy the standard either of the individual egoist or of any organized group mind. It will conform to the demand neither of the positive practical man or the world, nor of the formal moralist, nor the patriot, nor the sentimental philanthropist, nor of the idealizing philosopher. It will proceed by spontaneous outflowing from the summits in the total of an illumined and uplifted being, will and knowledge, not by the selected, calculated, and standardized action, which is all that the intellectual reason or ethical will achieve. The sole aim will be the expression of the divine in us and the keeping together of the world and its progress toward the manifestation that is to be. This even will not be so much an aim and purpose as spontaneous law of the being and an intuitive determination of the action by the light of the divine truth and its automatic influence. It will proceed like the action of nature from a total will and knowledge behind her, but a will and knowledge enlightened in conscious supreme nature and no longer obscure in this ignorant prakriti. It will be an action not bound by the dualities, but full and large in the spirit's impartial joy of existence, the happy and inspired movement of a divine power and wisdom guiding and impelling us. Will replace the perplexities and stumblings of the suffering of an ignorant ego. If by some miracle of divine intervention all mankind at once could be raised to this level, we should have something on earth like the golden age of the traditions, Satya Yuga, the age of truth or true existence, for the sign of Satya Yuga is that the law is spontaneous and conscious in each creature and does its own works in a perfect harmony and freedom. Unity, universality, not separative division, would be the foundation of consciousness of all the race. Love would be absolute. Equality would be consistent with hierarchy and perfect indifference. Absolute justice would be secured by the spontaneous action of the being in harmony with the truth of the things and the truth of himself and others, and therefore sure, true, and right result, right reason, no longer mental but supramental, would be satisfied not by the observation of artificial standards, but by the free automatic perception of right relations and their inevitable execution in the act. The quarrel between the individual and society or disastrous struggle between one community and another could not exist. The cosmic consciousness embedded in embodied beings would assure a harmonious diversity and oneness. I'm almost done. In the actual state of humanity, it is the individual who must climb to the height as a pioneer and precursor. His isolation will necessarily give a determination and form to his outward activities and must be quite other than those of consciously divine collective action. The inner state of the roots of his acts will be the same, but the acts themselves may be very different from what they would be on an earth liberated from ignorance. Nevertheless, this consciousness and the divine mechanism of his conduct if such words can be used, of so free a thing, would be such as has been described, free from that subjection to vital impurity and desire and wrong impulse, which can sin unbound by the rules of prescribed formulas, which we call virtue, spontaneously sure and pure, and perfect in greater consciousness than the minds governed in all the steps by the right and truth of the Spirit. But if collectively of group could be formed, those could be who had reached the supramental perfection, there indeed some divine creation could take shape, a new earth could descend that would be a new heaven, a world of supramental light could be created here amongst the receding darkness of the terrestrial ignorance. So the question essentially is what this author and spiritual teacher wrote about. The person submitting the question would like to know, what is the current state of this situation?
Okay, I get the council coming back in. As you speak of this situation, we go back to history, because what we know is that as many have been here on your planet creating before the human race, as you see it and know it, has been in existence, there have been times on your planet of great harmony, times in which all beings were interconnected and offering truth, creating through that one truth in order to be a part of not only humanity in its divine order, but the universe in its divine order. This entire process that you speak of is what we would call the ascension timeline in many, many words. But however, as the ascension timeline has been described, it is a vibrational experience. Vibrational experience does not necessarily rely on linear time, nor does it rely on history. It brings history to its experience, and it offers the opportunity to be able to shift the consciousness of those who are connected to it. This being said, the process in itself that has been undergone is one of fragmentation. It holds itself in different energies, and it is separate of the one because you have become separate of the one. In your human state, as you become separate of the one, you have taken on energies through your own singular experience to reconnect that one essence of healing. It is not just your consciousness that is a part of this. It is the collaborative effort of many vibrational beings in the universe that receive the connection of what you are doing and creating, that come to complement it. So when you speak of the process itself, what we would say is it is undergoing, but it is a fragmented consciousness that is allowing the process to take place. And if we look into your linear timeline and we perceive where you are heading in this healing, what we would say is there are several aspects that must be transcended in order to bring this type of reality back to the earth. Number one, the reconnection of the heart chakra of all beings into a one source energy. That telepathic exchange is a very critical component of the way that decision making would enable beings to be held in agreement with one another, so that everything that was created, every decision that was made honoring of all things. Number two, we would say the alignment of the planets are a very critical component as well of the way this timeline is reassembled. Throughout time and throughout history, planetary energies and their effect on the Earth record have been studied, and the history of those experiences has been recorded. But you find yourself, because you have been held in a different frequency, in a different location than what you have ever been before. Your consciousness has chose a different location within the universe, and this is affecting the Earth record or the timeline in response to planetary energies. So new complementary forms of energy are coming, as well as karmic experiences that must be undergone in order for this reconnection to take place. So we would say that in some respects, there is a slowing of this process due to this new location, even though the new location is very positive in its explanation, because the reason that new location was assimilated is the movement of the consciousness of the human collective. Third, we would say, the way in which material existence and the idea of how material existence is created is something that is a very big roadblock to human beings coming back together in this one energy. And we can say, for example, you've seen pockets of this taking place on your planet where communities have come together to cooperate for the highest good of one another without the hierarchy structure. But yet a hierarchy still does exist there because someone must be overseeing of that hierarchy in some way for the betterment of all beings. This is something that we see taking place on your planet that is complementary of the energy you speak of. However, it is still fragmented. It is not coming back together in a one source. The understanding of how creation in the material must take place holds many of those in the human collective back from assimilating this type of consciousness. Free will, as it is stated and as it has been received here, is something that must be considered. And when you speak about this timeline or these programs, free will, as it has been offered the collective consciousness, is something that has been misinterpreted. Free will is not something that is a choice of the self. Free will is a choice of the self in response to all others. So the reframing of sovereignty and free will on your planet from a soul standpoint is another very, we'll call, critical component of this timeline coming together. We would say that the overall vibration of the planet is shifting in the direction that you have mentioned of this cycle and of this time. And in particular, the original message that was brought forward about Mother Earth Gaia's DNA and these timeline energies coming to the surface are a part of what you are speaking of. The remembrance of the God source energy and the gods walking the earth and how they interacted with one another is something that you're revisiting. And as you revisit that, it must be shown within your physical experience first, because this is a part of the contract. In other words, all soul beings who are human have made a contract to be here in relationship to their sovereign free will to rebuild this living, breathing organism in one consciousness that is the enlightened ones. And we are all returning to those enlightened ones through our soul experience first. So as a conclusion, what we would say is that as the collective consciousness is vibrating and as the time-space reality is shifting, more opportunity to connect in this way is being offered. And as it is shown, it is being accepted. It is just being accepted in very fragmented energies. And those fragmented energies will begin to come together. But we see that we're projecting in any linear way is difficult. But we see that the time-space reality, the gap is closing between you in your singular perception and you in your responsible action as a one consciousness. More and more this is taking place on your planet, and you will begin to see it more and more evolve into the collaborative agreement that you are looking for. As far as judgment or ego or having wrongs righted in the field, this is an instantaneous process that is also evolving. And we can speak to manifestation as a tool. When you are creating in response to your collective energy something that is karmic, that may harm others, for example, because the speed of vibration has changed so quickly that karmic action is being met with its double or its likeness in a much faster energy. So we're coming closer to the time where responsibility for all actions is being upheld. And that responsibility will no longer be needed. The karmic action meeting the magnetic double or likeness of itself will not be needed, because there will be no activity that is operating in that energy. As you become focused on the self offers the key and the tools to expand your connection to others. This is where we see the focus most being held up. That beings who are human have been taught that they are not allowed to be their godlike energy. That godlike energy must come to the surface and be activated in the singular in order for this reconnection. to take place.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Whew.
Thank you.
I forgot you were here. Thank you all for coming. Any questions? I can answer channeling experience you have. Anything else? Okay. We're gonna pass around a basket too. We're here from Flower of Life. We do this free, but we take donations to cover the room today, as well as our other projects that we have going on. We have our expo and our youth movement and all that stuff. So if you can contribute, great. If not, no worries. Okay, question.
I do have a question. The idea of being able to connect through dreams. What happens when you don't seem to dream? When your dreams are blocked?
Well, from my standpoint, we go through ebbs and flows with that. Okay. And I don't think you need to necessarily remember the dream. And this, I will say I use this as a tool for myself a lot because I'm a channel and, every channel is sifting information through their consciousness. I don't necessarily like to channel for myself, which people might find as a surprise. When I first started channeling, I channeled for myself all the time. Like, that's all I did. But now I prefer dream state to receive my information. So often what I'll do before I go to bed is I'll state an intention, just a general intention of something I need. Maybe I need information about a relationship or to solve an issue in my life or whatever I need. Sometimes I stay open, whatever is most important for me. Almost always I will wake up with some remembrance of either a dream, there'll be a song in my head, or I'll get up in the morning and walk right into something either on the laptop or something in my physical reality that gives me exactly what I need. Or just a knowing. Sometimes I wake up with the knowing. I think that we travel very freely in dream state. So our light body is letting us go and we're gone. When we can't bring that information back, sometimes there's a reason, right? Sometimes we travel to places that don't make sense to us in our physical reality, or we're going through extrasensory shifts in our body. But you're traveling nonetheless. So you're going there. You're dreaming, you're traveling, you're getting information. It's always integrated with you, and you'll stumble upon it later, I feel, like even staying open to it for a couple of days. But I find a strong intentional process at bedtime can build that muscle. So I just say be very intentional with your guides before you go to bed. State an intention that you wish to dream, you wish to remember your dreams. This is the problem you need to sort out in your dream, and see what happens. And, when you wake up, kind of sit with it for a moment. And I find 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, when my clients do this and when I do it, sometimes you might wake up about 5 and then fall back to sleep, and that's when it happens. It's just a higher state of consciousness. Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment about the example you gave about car accidents and the density there.
Yeah.
I was in 2 car accidents in 4 months and had a family member pass away in the middle of all of it as well.
Wow.
And I was conscious enough to know I needed to stop and evaluate. And the density piled on. I was very sick for a while. But as I started to meditate on a regular basis, everything changed. My sickness went away. My pains went away. My clarity came back, So I just wanted to affirm that it's real, and
I believe it.
I had that experience.
I believe it, and I've seen that in my life too. I'm a big proponent of surrender, because sometimes there's things that happen to us that are, there's no logical way to sort it out, and you're like, I'm just so angry, but if you surrender it, and I've seen that happen in my life where I've just surrendered things, and then all of a sudden stuff starts to flow again. And I think surrender is a powerful tool. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I just want to ask a follow-up question about the dream state.
Yeah.
I think I have a misconception that it would interfere with the quality of sleep that you're having.
Oh.
How does...
Well, you're doing it already, and I don't think so. No, as a matter of fact, I feel like I sleep deeper when I have those types of dreams. Dream has been, or even sleep has been such a huge topic. It's been coming up constantly. I feel like people either aren't sleeping or they're like sleeping too much right now. And it's those adjustments, those energetic adjustments. But I think that dream state is such a valuable a valuable time. And sometimes in my meditation, I've brought back experiences that I've had in dream state too. I woke up and I just could remember a tail end, like a tail piece of it. And then I'll intend to remember because I know something was significant there and I can bring it back. So yeah, I don't think it messes up with the quality so much.
Right, because you said it's happening anyway.
It's
more about
happening.
being intentional and being conscious of it, or wanting to be conscious.
Right, yeah, I truly believe that we're traveling in dreams. And I've seen people, clients that I had for years who started off like that, who said, I know something's going on in my dreams, but I can't remember them. And through various readings and stuff we've had now, they remember it all, and they're going to incredible places and meeting guides and stuff. So I think dreams can be a really great tool. Sleep can be a great tool for bringing stuff in because what happens when we go to sleep is we release all of our resistance. There's no resistance when we're sleeping. So our light body, it can go anywhere. So you direct that light body before you release that resistance, you can just really go. It's almost better than meditation sometimes.
So you feel like meditation amplifies it?
Absolutely. I'm a true believer in regular meditation because I think it will amplify the dream stuff. Even just beyond that, you'll just start to see your world is so synchronistic when you meditate. Information will come in from all over the place, not just dreams. But yeah, I think that's complementary. Yeah.
When this started for you, how did you conquer fear? I had an experience where I wanted to meet my guide.
Yes.
And I was lifting my energy. As I lifted my energy, the ceiling fan began to swirl like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it shifted my attention, and it caused a moment of fear, which I would fight, which is probably a promise. But I struggle with not having a fear because
right.
I don't want to live in that state. But how do you balance that, and how do you just let it come without and know that you're safe?
That's an excellent question. I think it's so different for everyone. And, when I first started doing this, I didn't know what I was doing. And I wasn't happy about it. So I had guides and beings coming in talking to me, and I didn't want any part of it. So I got a little angry, but what I noticed was my angry stance was so much better than being in fear. And I tell this to my daughter too. So I have two very gifted daughters, and my daughter sometimes, connects with spirit, and she's very afraid of it. And I say, you need to question, because the second you get into that energy of questioning, it's not an angry vibration, but it's a very strong vibration. So when you start to see that ceiling fan move, ask, who's here? Why is this happening? What's going on? Who's around me? And I think that kind of stance helps you to get over the fear, and it actually will bring you answers too, because I had all the spirit around me, and I was so angry, and I said, you know what? Nobody comes in until they tell me a name. No, and from that second on, everybody who came in gave me a name. To this day, I get the name. I was like, how do you get names? I just said, nobody talks to me until you get a name, But I think it's a stance. It's a vibrational stance, and you can do so many things. I talk about protection a little bit differently than other people do. And listen, this is, connecting to spirit is a big deal. We know we can go a lot of places where there's things we don't want to connect with. But what I've found is if you're in your power and you're vibrating in a certain way, you can navigate through all of that. And it's just really about consciousness. Everything in your life is a consciousness. The music you listen to, the shows you watch, the food you eat. If you're going to go that route and be intentional about it, make sure that everything around you matches who you want to connect with, because you want to make sure you're bringing in, the guide, the being that's most suitable to bring you the best information. You want to feel better. You don't want to feel in fear. But I would try that. I think, questioning is a great tool, because the more you question, the less fear. And you might find that it was somebody beautiful that was moving that fan, and I've had scary situations with spirit, that I knew couldn't be here. And the second I started to question them, I found out, wow, they just really needed help. So they were trying to scare me because they were lost and they were stuck between worlds, or when you question, you get really valuable information. So, yeah. Anyone else? Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks.